Today we will be discussing about agrobiodiversity for food security. Agrobiodiversity forms a bedrock for the growth of agriculture and development. This agrobiodiversity is essential component for achieving food security. To start with, I would like to stress the important factor, what is driving, what is the cause of concern. So what is the problem that we are facing? The important problem that we are facing in the current century is the increase in human population. The human population has crossed 7 billion. By 2050 it will cross 9.6 billion or 10 billion. So this increasing human population will cause tremendous pressure on the agro ecosystem, on the earth's services, natural resources. It will cause a lot of harm to the agricultural resources also. And second important factor is the chronically undernourished population. It comes around 1 billion people are chronically undernourished population. They should be fed with qualitative foods, they should be fed with nutritional foods, and for that we need to increase our agriculture production. And third important cause of concern is the shift in the diet pattern. So there is a movement of towards the meat and dairy consumption, from cereals to meat and dairy consumption. This diet shift is also a very important factor, and because of this diet shift the pressure on agricultural activity that will be increasing. And next is the biofuel consumption. When I say biofuel consumption, we are in the era of energy security or energy scarcity, because we need to produce more of energy. For that reason we looked for the renewable resources, because non-renewable resources are at loss. So we were not in a position to concentrate more on non-renewable resources. We need to look for new energy resources. For that, so biofuel is one option, and when you go for biofuel as an option, definitely what happens are exactly the area available for agriculture crop production that will be reduced. So there is a conflict of interest for agriculture production and biofuel production. So there is a conflict, and this conflict also has to be managed, and this is again a cause of concern. Next is industrial agriculture practices, modern agriculture practices. This modern agriculture practices are driven by subsidized inputs. When I say it is subsidized, it means that we are providing the inputs in the form of fertilizers, we are providing inputs in the form of water. So we are providing everything possible for increasing the agriculture production, and just because of these inputs our agriculture production was in a position to increase. So for example, in Indian condition we have experienced a revolution called the green revolution. It means what? There was a quantum jump in the production, there was a quantum jump in the productivity. Way back in 1966 the agriculture production in India was only 75 million tonnes, but now we have crossed 270 million tonnes, and this quantum jump in agriculture production is because of what? Because of the technology, because of use of agriculture resources, because of what? Because of the extension activity. So many things put together led to increase the agriculture production, and this is a unique feature of modern intensive agriculture. But closely if you examine this modern intensive agriculture, you will see the agriculture landscape. In the agriculture landscape you will be finding only the monoculture, you will be finding a genetically uniform croplands, and when you see the genetically uniform croplands, it means that they are vulnerable genetically to stresses, to environmental stresses, biotic as well as the abiotic stresses. So in this intensive agriculture practices it is having a lot of harm as far as the other resources are concerned. It will cause a lot of pressure. For example, the microbial resources, this agriculture practices, modern intensive agriculture practices, I said they are using agrochemicals. These agrochemicals can also cause harm to the valuable beneficial microorganisms. It can be a vesicular arbuscular mycorrhizae, it can be a rhizobium, it can be many other beneficial microorganisms that is existing in the soil environment, and this beneficial microorganisms is essential for increasing the productivity of the crops. This modern intensive agriculture, what it has given? It has given an higher crop production. It is fine, it is better, it is very good, but it has caused lot of harm also. It is having lot of drawbacks also, and the foremost drawback is the homogenization of agricultural landscape, and that has led to what? It has led to the loss of biological diversity. And this homogenization, it means that the croplands are less diverse, the genetic base is very narrow, and this narrow genetic base is very difficult to manage, because at any time any stress that can cause a lot of harm to the agriculture crops. So this modern intensive agriculture has to be transformed into another agriculture that should be sustainable. And when I say the agriculture, if it is to be sustainable, it has to be taken into account the agrobiodiversity, it has to be taken into account the diversity, it has to take into account the best possible features of ecosystem, sustainability of ecosystem. So then only this agriculture, sustainable agriculture will be existing, then only it will be sustainable. And what are the possibilities? The possibility, I said that human population is increasing day by day, and by 2050 the population will be reaching 10 billion, and to feed this human population of to 2050 we need to increase agriculture production. How much we need to increase? We need to increase agriculture production, in fact double the agriculture production. We have to double the agriculture production by 2050. How it is possible? Is it possible? So if you understand the possibilities for that to take place, for that to understand much better, I have taken for example the crops like maize, rice, wheat and soybean. So these 3 or 4 crops combinedly contribute more than 3/4 of the need of human beings, the calorific need, energy need. So these 4 crops are very important thing. So we have, on examining the yield trends of these 4 crops, the past trends, yield trends, the annual trends, annual growth of the yield, if you look at it, growth rate, that is very less, it is less than 1.5%, but what we require is 2.4%. When I say only when we have an yield increase of 2.4%, then only we can achieve the yield targets, then only we can double the crop production by 2050. So what is expected? The expectation is 2.4%, but the yield trends of the main crops, that is maize, rice, wheat and soybean, the yield trend is lesser than the 2.4%. So it is very difficult proportion. So it is a kind of a crisis. Agriculture is definitely a crisis. So how to manage it? Is there any possibility? Is there any opportunity? So exactly, if you see, we are at crossroads, agriculture is at crossroads, and there are opportunities, and we have to take the opportunities one by one. The first and foremost opportunity is that we cannot increase the arable lands, because the kind of pressure for the arable land is increasing day by day, because just because it is driven by the increasing human population. Human beings wanted the land for urbanization, they wanted for industrial activity, they wanted for many other activities to meet their human needs. So we cannot increase the arable land, and with the available arable land, how to produce so much agriculture production. So how to increase agriculture production? So the best way is to increase the efficiency. By increasing the efficiency, we can increase the agriculture production. And second important opportunity is we can increase the yield growth rates through best management practices, and those management practices are sustainable in nature, and that is not going to cause harm to the ecosystem, that is going to benefit the other microorganisms, other living organisms that is existing in agro ecosystem. Since these best management practices can provide sustainability, can provide the sustenance to the farmers, definitely that will increase the yield. So this increase in yield will definitely increase the agriculture production. So we need to focus on the best management practices. Whatever we are having it, we need to adopt it, and we need to strategize ourselves. We need to develop new strategies to manage the environmental changes. So in order to manage the environmental changes, we need to develop new strategies, novel ideas, innovative ideas. These will form the BMP, best management practices. And another opportunity lies in closing the yield gap. The yield gap exists between, that is, the yield gap is between the potential yield and the actual yield. under the farm level, at the farm level, the whatever the yield the farmer is getting, that is called actual yield. At the research level, at the university level, before releasing a crop variety, the breeder will be having a yield trials, and he will be predicting, and that yield is called potential yield. And there is a difference existing between the potential yield and the actual yield, and the difference, the yield gap, that is called yield gap, and it is because of the stresses. It can be because of the stresses in the form of water scarcity, or the biotic stresses, pest, disease causing organisms, or it can be because of the human management practices. I mean to say the farmers' practices. Farmers will be adopting certain practices, the technology, the extension, the other inputs. So all will cause an yield gap, and this yield gap has to be narrowed down. So how it is possible? We need to go for extension activities, agriculture extension activity, and we will be providing all the possible resources to the farmers, whether it is an input or a technology. So by that way, what happened, we can reduce the yield gap, and by reducing the yield gap, definitely what will happen, we will be in a position to reach to the potential yield, and because of we will be in a position to reach the potential yield, that will provide ample opportunity for increasing the agriculture production. And next important opportunity lies in demand management. So demand for the food, that is from increasing human population. Yes, so the demand management is a very important exercise. By managing the demand, for example, food waste. So if we reduce the food waste, can't we increase the production? Can't we provide the food security to the population? So it is possible. So at the demand level also we need to have certain strategies. The best strategy is food waste, reducing the food waste, efficient utilization of food. We should not reduce the food losses, that is a very important thing. As far as the horticulture crops are concerned, the losses are too much, and if we go for a post harvest technology, what we can do, we can convert the losses into the resources, and so that is why it is a very important strategy, that is a very important opportunity. The opportunity is very wide in case of demand management. Having said everything, the last resort, because if we wanted to increase agriculture production, there is no other way out. In that case, we have to go for expanding the croplands. But of course, can we expand the croplands in the marginal lands? Is it possible? So we need to look for those opportunities, but this should be the last resort, last option, because this expansion of croplands will cause a lot of harm to the biodiversity, cause a lot of harm to the agroecosystem. So it is very difficult thing. So of course we need to increase agriculture production. If there is no other option left, so we need to look for expanding the croplands. So as I told you that we need to look for the agrobiodiversity, because it is having a lot of potential within it. So because we have used it, we have tapped the potential, we have known the potential of agrobiodiversity, we need to use it for furthering our needs, to meet our needs. What it means? It means that variety and variability of plants, animals, microorganisms at the genetic, species and ecosystem level that are necessary to sustain various facets of agroecosystem, and this is what agrobiodiversity is. And it includes all the components of agroecosystem that is responsible for food and agriculture. And this agrobiodiversity is the essential component for agroecosystem, because it provides stability, it provides resilience, it provides productivity, enhancement, it provides everything. Genetic enhancement will be possible. So this agrobiodiversity is having a lot of potential. By adopting this agrobiodiversity, we can ensure food security. And how? We will look at it. This agrobiodiversity has a lot of role to play. The first and foremost role is for the improvement of crop varieties and farm animal breeds. Agrobiodiversity is used, and it is a very important thing, because if you see in our country itself, by using this agrobiodiversity, we have developed high yielding varieties. In case of crop plants, we have developed more than 3000 crop varieties, high yielding varieties. In case of horticulture crops, more than 500 crop varieties, high yielding varieties have been developed by using agrobiodiversity. And in India, we have gone for developing new hybrids. We are the first in the world. We have developed a cotton hybrid, we have developed a grain pearl millet, we have developed a first hybrid in Kajanas Gajan, red gram. And of course, as far as the rice hybrid is concerned, we are next to China. So we have developed rice hybrids. These hybrids which exploit the heterosis, that are the best features in the crop improvement activity. So these hybrids are high yielding, they provide better yields than the varieties, and this hybrid development is a very, very important exercise, and that is possible by using agrobiodiversity in various hybridization programs, crop hybridization program. It can be an intervarietal hybridization program, it can be interspecific, it can be intraspecific also, and for that the development that has taken place in plant breeding, it's wide, it's quite large, and this developments is helpful for improving the crop varieties, and the same thing holds good for farm animals also. See, for improving the farm animals, the agrobiodiversity was used extensively. And next important role as far as the agrobiodiversity is concerned, it is enhancing the agricultural productivity, enhancing the stability of agro ecosystem. When I say agricultural productivity, the agriculture productivity was increased by capitalizing, by tapping the potential of use efficiencies. In case of fertilizer use efficiency, we have increased. In case of water use efficiency, we have increased. And how we have increased? We have used the agrobiodiversity. And by using the agrobiodiversity, agriculture productivity was enhanced. We are in a position to increase the migration coefficient. We are in a position to increase the harvest index, and by that way also we have increased the agriculture productivity. When we have increased agriculture productivity, that lead to increase in agriculture production. And as far as the stability of an agro ecosystem is concerned, the agro ecosystem, it is stable. It can face any perturbations. It can be perturbation, can be even the change in the temperature, it can be a stress, it can be a biotic stress, but it is stable. The agro ecosystem will be stable when it incorporates the various features of agrobiodiversity. It means that it includes the crop assemblages, it includes lot of variability in the soil microorganisms. In that case, the agro ecosystem will be stable, and that stability has been enhanced by incorporating agrobiodiversity in our crop plan. And this agrobiodiversity, in fact, it is having a lot of potential, it is having an insurance value. It forms an insurance against changing environmental condition. The environmental condition, as I said, it can be the climate change, it can be a change in the environment, soil environment, less fertile condition, less productive condition, marginal lands. So under these circumstances also this agrobiodiversity can be used. And if you see, there is a less of water, for example, even under that condition also, if you change the root architecture, definitely the plant can survive. And by changing the root architecture, how can you change it? We can change the root architecture by looking at the agrobiodiversity. We have to look at the crops, we have to look at the plants, we have to look at the wild species which is having that potential, which can survive under lesser water conditions. By that way we can increase the water use efficiency also. So a lot of potential that is existing underneath the soil, that is root. The root is a very, very important component. By focusing on root architecture, we can increase the potential of nutrient uptake, water uptake. So this agrobiodiversity is having an potential as far as the insurance is concerned, crop insurance is concerned, because this insurance means, I wanted to say, is that any conditions, this agrobiodiversity, if it is capitalized, that can enhance the production of agriculture. And next important thing is that I was stressing it time and again, the climate change, because this climate change is going to cause a lot of harm to agriculture, and because of this climate change can be the agriculture production can drastically reduce. When it is reducing, definitely it is very difficult for us to meet the human needs. It is very difficult for us to double the crop production by 2050, because this climate change is going to be a greatest threat for agriculture. It can cause harm because of the increase in temperature. It can cause harm because there is a variability that is a part and parcel of climate change, and that climate variability that will be exhibit in the form of a variability in precipitation, and this variability in precipitation can cause flood and drought, and this extreme conditions, climate extreme conditions, that will cause a lot of harm to the agriculture production. And when I say the increase in temperature, last century we have seen an increase of 0.74 degrees centigrade, but this century they are expecting more than 3 degrees centigrade. But the recent agreement at the Paris, they have come to a conclusion that we have to take measures to reduce the temperature increase by 2 degrees centigrade. Even that 2 degrees centigrade can cause a lot of harm to the agriculture production, because the agriculture production is very sensitive to temperature, very sensitive to the climate, because it is a climate sensitive enterprise. This agriculture will be deeply impacted by climate change, and to cope up with this stress, cope up with this climate change stress, what we need to look for bank on agrobiodiversity, and how we will be developing new crop varieties. Those crop varieties will be resilient to climate change, and we will be developing certain adaptation strategies, and that adaptation strategies, the success of it will depend on agrobiodiversity. It can be a root factor, I mean to say the drought. To manage the drought, we need to look at the root phenomenon, root architecture, or else if you wanted to manage the flood condition, we need to look at the crop architecture. I am talking about the plant architecture also. So everything, the solution lies in the valuable genes that is encoded in the agricultural resources, and those valuable genes has to be used, it should be taken up, and definitely we can use it by plant breeding activity. It is a very important thing, because when you see there is a change in the climate, and that will lead to pest resurgence, that will lead to a change in the dynamics of pest, that will lead to the change in the dynamics of crop growth and development quality. So for that thing we need to develop a new crop, we need to develop a variety that is resilient to the climate change. So this crop resilience is very important thing, and that will be possible by adopting, by using valuable resources, that is agricultural biodiversity. And this agrobiodiversity is having a lot of role to play. It can be a regulating role or supporting services. When I say regulating role, nutrient cycling is a very important role. Nutrient cycling is a very important thing. When you go for this proper efficient utilization of nutrients that is available in the soil, the crop yield can be increased. And there are other supporting services also. It is reported that 35% of crop production, global crop production, is dependent on pollinators, and this is a very essential phenomenon. So pollination is a very essential phenomenon as far as cross pollinated crops are concerned, and 35% of global crop production is dependent on pollinators. Believe me how important it is. This pollinators, the abundance, the pollinator species, and everything is dependent on agrobiodiversity. So we have to improve the pollinators, their existence, the species diversity, the diversity existing within the species, we have to improve it, and when we improve it, the pollination that will be enhanced, and by that way what happened, we can improve the agriculture crop production as far as the cross pollinated crops are concerned. And it is also reported that if you are in a position to tap the resources, that is a genetic variation that is existing, for example a bee population, that will enhance the pollination, it seems. So not only the crop diversity, I am talking about the species diversity and genetic variation that is existing in the croplands, we need to capitalize the diversity that is existing in the related organisms, a pollinator. It can be a microorganism also. So for example microorganisms, I told you that these nitrogen fixing organisms like rhizobium, their efficiency can be enhanced greatly by using the agrobiodiversity. There are many organisms, rhizobacteria, there are many nitrogen fixed microorganisms are there, phosphorus mobilizers are there, vesicular arbuscular mycorrhizae, phosphobacteria, there are many organisms. These organisms can be utilized for enhancing the agriculture production, for enhancing the health of the agro ecosystem, we can use it. These are the wonderful services provided by the agrobiodiversity. And this agrobiodiversity, the importance of it can be exhibited very well in a diverse farming system. Take for example a diverse farming system, and this diverse farming system can resist any perturbation that is taking place in the environment. This diverse farming system will provide lot of output, and that will enhance the ability of the farmers, the stakeholders, they can the income that will be enhanced. For example, Nair reported that in Brazil, agroforestry system, it is almost around 10 to 20 hectares of agroforestry system, it provided a net income that was more than 1000 hectare cattle ranch, whatever it is giving, it is more than that. It means that this agroforestry system was in a position to provide more of income when you compare with the cattle ranch. So what I want to say is that this diverse farming system has utilized the features of stability, increased productivity, and by that way what happened, this agroforestry that has helped to increase the income of the farmers, that has helped to increase the income of the farm produce. And when you increase the farm produce, the total output is increased, definitely we can increase our agriculture production also. So our main goal is to increase the heterogeneity in the landscape, agriculture landscape, and when we increase the heterogeneity in the landscape, that will definitely enhance the ability of an agricultural production system. I told you the importance of agroforestry system. Agroforestry system symbolizes what? It symbolizes diversification. Diversification, it is a combination of agricultural crops and the forestries. It can be an grass also, fodder crops. So this agroforestry system is having a lot of benefits, and that benefits you can see it in our country and elsewhere also. And next important factor is the traditional crop varieties. The traditional crop varieties are repository of genes, valuable genes. They have the genes to resist the pest, they have the genes to resist the drought, they have the genes to resist the high or low temperature. So this traditional crop varieties has to be used for increasing our agriculture production. So this has to be incorporated in our crop breeding activity. I would like to stress an important factor, a management practice that is existing in agriculture. A simple management practice is in intercropping, it is a management practice. In a case of maize and peanut intercropping, if you can see that how important this intercropping is. For example, this intercropping shown benefit in yield, that is yield is increased, and another important factor is the peanut crop, it is a very important crop. This peanut crop has shown deficiency symptom, a chlorosis deficiency symptom, and this deficiency symptom is induced by iron, and this iron induced deficiency that has been noticed in peanut crop, this has been when it is grown as a sole crop, but when this peanut crop has been intercropped with the maize crop, this deficiency was not there. Maize, since it is having its a better ability to uptake the iron, because of this what happened, it is also made available the iron in a form that can be easily taken up by the peanuts. So the maize, in case of maize peanut intercropping, the iron uptake was enhanced for the peanut crop, and that was a wonderful thing. Next example, if you see for intercropping, in case of a maize and faba bean intercropping, the phosphorus availability was enhanced. Phosphorus availability, because of the availability has increased, the maize crop got the benefit. So there are many other roles to play by the agrobiodiversity, but essentially this agrobiodiversity is a central component for achieving food security, and it is having a huge potential to increase agriculture production, this agrobiodiversity, because by developing new crop varieties, by developing new crop plants, this agrobiodiversity can definitely lead to food security, food and nutrition security. The diversity that is existing in an agro ecosystem, if it is capitalized, we can increase the diversity in the farm produce. When the farm produce, the diversity is increased, definitely that will provide a diversity in the dietary also. So in a way what happened, this diversity, if we were in a position to increase in the agro ecosystem through diversified farming, that will lead to nutrition security. And also by including certain crops, millets, sorghum, these are all called as nutri-cereals. In a cropping system, we can achieve nutrition security, because nutrition security is part and parcel of food security. What it means? The food security means that all the individuals should get at every time whatever the need, that food nutritional demands has to be met, that is food security. It is having many dimensions. The foremost dimension is the availability, and second is the accessibility, and another important factor is these all the dimensions should help in utilization of the food. So when I say this, the multiple dimension of food security, and everything is made possible by adopting this agrobiodiversity management practices. And when I say about the food, future food, because we are talking about the future food production should use the knowledge of the farmers, because they have the local knowledge, they have the traditional knowledge. That traditional knowledge has to be used for increasing our food production by changing certain strategies. By that strategies, what happened? We can increase the land use practices. When you increase the land use practices, because that land use practices will take into account the local environmental conditions. And it is very essential to summarize that this particular agrobiodiversity is essential to achieve food nutrition security, livelihood security, and it is very essential to adapt to changing climatic conditions. And another thing is that we need to concentrate on this survey and collection of plant genetic resources, and this plant genetic resources has to be utilized for enhancing the crop productivity. And very important thing is that we need to focus on the underutilized and niche crops, and that is a very important thing. Thank you.